Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And I'm JB.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast that's only 93% human, because this week we watched Spyfall.
Written by Chris Chibnall.
Directed by Jamie Magnus Stone and Lee Haven Jones.
And aired on
That's
January...
a mouthful.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It aired on January 1st and January 5th, 2020.
Yeah, we're officially contemporaneous almost with Doctor Who.
Heck yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, yeah.
And as we mentioned on our resolution episode, which literally goes out in 45 minutes, we're joined by JB. We're joined by JB this week.
Hello. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome back to
Thank
Trust
you.
Your Doctor.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. I remember you mentioning, like, when Spyfall aired. You're like, I want to be on Spyfall. We were like, okay, we'll let you know when we get there. It'll be very soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to put that in as soon as possible. And it's actually good because I rewatched this for the second time tonight. I watched this from the... let me start over again. I watched this again for the second time last night in preparation for today. And I enjoyed it more than I did the first time round because, I got to look at certain things in part one that I didn't know I should be looking at until the end of part one. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to just I'm not going to bury the lead. I think this is probably my favorite Jodie Whittaker episode to date.
Wow. Very high praise for an episode that I thought was just kind of all right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's sort of, it's I think high up there for me, maybe more middle of the pack.
Well, it helps that it's a two-parter, and I really think that you can really tell an effective story. You can really take your time with the pacing of of a story and being able to take care of all your characters' needs with a two-parter instead of just trying to cram everything into 50 minutes in a single episode.
Well, you see, it's funny that you say that because I agree that you can take more time in a two-part episode, but I think that this episode totally bungled the pacing in the second episode. So that's actually why I think this episode is just kind of all right, funnily enough.
All right, well, we will certainly get to that. But,
it is, I'm glad that you brought that up, though, because this is the first two-parter of the Whittaker / Chibnall era.
Right.
So it's sort of, momentous just with that alone. And yeah, I mean, I guess sort of opinion on whether they nailed that or not is
the jury's
divided.
still out.
Yeah, and just jump right into it then, I guess.
Yeah, so, well, I just want to mention before we get into this that when JB wanted to be on, I think he explicitly told me, don't spoil it for yourself.
yes.
Well, that didn't happen.
This is the beauty of not being involved full time on a Doctor Who podcast anymore. Is that I didn't have to have all these Doctor Who. Well, I mean, I do follow some Doctor Who accounts, but I made sure to stay off the day that the first episode premiered. I made sure to stay off, especially Twitter. I mean, the BBC have been pretty good at keeping spoilers under their hat up until right after they released the episode, and then it's spoilers ahoy.
Yeah, I think that's why they specifically told all the fans, "Dude, you can watch Ascension of the Cybermen when it airs. Don't let this get spoiled for you." And I'm like, who's going to spoil it for me, though? You?
Yeah, exactly. They know what they're doing, and they're proud of it.
Well, I'm going to make an active effort to actually not spoil Ascension of the Cybermen for myself, because if there's one thing I don't want spoiled, it's like the, quote, big reveals they've got in the finale, the Timeless Child. So I'm going to make an active effort, actually.
Yeah, just stay off Twitter for like the next 2 weeks.
Probably what I'm going to do, honestly.
Well,
you have to. You really have to.
This is like a lesson I learned the hard way, because like when this aired, January 1, I knew what was happening. I wasn't like totally, aware of it though. I wasn't like paying attention to it because I wasn't watching these as they aired. So I just log into Twitter casually and just bam, just spoilers just everywhere.
Yeah.
I didn't even have it spoiled on Twitter. I had it spoiled on Facebook. Although, here's the thing, actually. On Twitter, I like kind of had it spoiled because I remember 6 months ago when they were filming this season, or 7 months ago, someone spotted Sacha Dhawan on set and they were like, could he be playing the Master? And I don't know, like,
Couldn't be.
I don't know what this person, like, based their theory on. They were just, like, throwing this out there. And I'm like, interesting theory. Nice rumor. And then 6 months later on Twitter, I just saw a picture that was like, wow, look who showed up in Doctor Who. And it was just a picture of Sacha Dhawan. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if he's playing the Master. And then I went on Facebook and it was like, the Master is back. And I'm like, wow, great. Thanks, BBC. So that was the story of how I spoiled it.
Well, I came in completely unspoiled, and I will say that when that moment happened at the end of part 1, my stomach literally dropped.
Yeah, it was actually done very well. Kind of bummed I didn't get to experience it for the first time. Kind of like how the last Master reveal was also spoiled for me by the BBC. Thanks, BBC.
But think of
No,
it
that
this,
was spoiled by like crappy Moffat writing.
But think of it this way: the people who didn't have it spoiled, like JB and countless other people who didn't have it spoiled,
Literally everyone who watched it on first airing.
Exactly, didn't have the experience of knowing that it was the Master.
Great.
So they're missing out too.
But I think we got the better deal, though.
Somehow I agree.
Probably.
I think you did get the better deal.
Because when you rewatch part 1, knowing who he is, you're looking for certain things, like how he reacts to the TARDIS and how he's so anxious to have Graham look over his old files of the Doctor. It's like, what is his game? Why is he? Is he trying to sow some discord amongst the fam, quote unquote?
Oh, absolutely. And I want to talk about that later on because I think he succeeded.
Oh, yes. It's finally brought some drama into the
There was
TARDIS.
definitely drama before. Don't you remember Yaz and her sister fighting over nothing, really?
Well, he's finally brought Yaz
we'll get into Yaz.
into the forefront of like actually doing things.
Yeah, they actually gave her something to do this story, and she did it quite well. Spoiler alert, this is kind of her moment here to shine, and we kind of go back to status quo afterwards. But that's all you have yet to see.
I mean, I was going to say, looking back on Series 11, having just rewatched it, Yaz did a lot more than I remembered on first viewing. I think I was caught up in the fervor of the online community saying she didn't do anything. But maybe that's just the trust your doctorism.
A friend of mine described her as she's like Nyssa, but without the interesting backstory.
What is Yaz's backstory besides being a cop? Well, we found out that she became a cop because she was bullied as a kid and she wanted to beat up bullies. She wanted to stop bullying. So
she became a bully.
Yeah. All right, so this starts in the Ivory Coast
with a sniper
for the first time in Doctor Who in the Ivory Coast.
Well, for the first time in the Whittaker / Chibnall era, I think we get a cold open. Unless the woman who fell to Earth had one, I don't remember.
That whole episode was a cold open.
Oh, right, because they didn't do the intro in that one.
Yeah,
so
woman
who
fell to Earth opened with Ryan doing that vlog.
Right.
Yeah. I think Resolution didn't. I think Resolution didn't have a theme last week, did it? Opening theme.
I don't remember.
I think just watched that and I can't remember.
Didn't Resolution started with that whole voiceover about three armies coming together and defeating the Dalek? You're not counting that as a cold open?
Oh yeah. I guess it did have a cold open.
I meant that it didn't have an opening theme. Yeah, when you start an episode with a voiceover, you know you're in trouble.
Well, this one begins with some sick narration from a hidden sort of sniper.
It starts with a crappier version of the Impact font from last week too. Yeah.
My notes show my notes has show me the money with all the location filming, because they actually shot this in West Africa, I think.
Would not be surprised. This entire 2 episode span is literally, let's just show off all the location filming we did for the whole season. And I was really thinking at the end of it, I was like, damn, I bet the next 5 episodes are all filmed on sets.
Well, that's the thing, is when the trailer dropped, people thought that the trailer included footage from like 5 to 7 different episodes, but really it was mostly just Spyfall.
And I definitely noticed the shot that you mentioned where they just like Photoshopped the master out of the back of the shot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, it is. It's also I don't know, disturbing in many ways. To me,
it?
Kind of, yeah.
Maybe it ties into the themes of this episode.
I do. I do think so, and I think that that's something that I'm gonna have to wrap my head around.
Doctor Who is real. So we see a sniper. She gets killed presumably by someone who like phases through the wall, and then we see some chick on a plane who also gets killed by presumably by someone who phases through a wall.
Well, we find out later she's a spy. But
They're all spies.
perhaps the worst spy of all time, because airplane bathrooms have cameras and surveillance in them, right? So I guess she's not doing anything weird other than like eating
I don't
paper.
think they would have cameras inside a restroom.
Oh, yeah.
That's too much of an invasion of privacy there.
Sure,
Absolutely.
okay.
But they have smoke detectors.
Oh, they have smoke detectors.
Because you're not supposed to smoke on planes anymore.
Yeah, I just had a really claustrophobic reaction because we just took a trip to Hawaii, and that's like a 9-hour flight there and a 7-hour flight back, and it was a really tight squeeze there. We're sitting in like middle economy, and it was just restless throughout the whole trip.
You should try flying economy to South Africa.
Oh dear God!
It's a 24-hour flight from where we are.
You'd have to knock me out. You would just have to knock me out.
It's a full day on an airplane with layovers, but a full day. Literally a full day cramped up in a seat.
Oh God!
And it's like that. There's that new route that Qantas is testing out, like the longest plane route in the world that goes from like Sydney to New York nonstop. There's like a 16-hour nonstop flight.
Oh God!
So that sounds like fun. All right, so then we cut to Ryan, Yaz, and Graham all separately
Just kinda
getting
doing their own
accosted
thing.
by people in suits.
By spies.
And we find out that Graham is left-handed. I don't know why I made a note of this. I was just like, wow, Graham is left-handed. I don't remember what he was even doing, but he was doing something, and he was left-handed. And I was like, I don't think we've seen him left-handed before. He might even be the very first left-handed companion, confirmed left-handed companion on Doctor Who.
Maybe, I'm sure the Doctor Who wiki has like a page for left-handedness or something.
Probably.
I mean, they have a page for like dates, like literally just, I don't know, throw in a date, January 31st, 1983.
I thought you meant date the like fruit, and I was going to be not surprised either because of the page on grapes.
Yeah, the Doctor Who wiki, let's just take this a little aside, because why not? The Doctor Who wiki is just wild. Like, look up something that's real on the Doctor Who wiki, like, I don't know, Cleopatra or like the American Revolution, and you'll just see some like real, like actual factual historical info, and then all of a sudden just like, and the Doctor showed up there with her companions and did this, that, and the other, and it's like, whoa, this is such a weird experience reading this wiki of like having this real world stuff combined and mixed with this fantasy stuff too. I don't know, it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, the Doctor Who wiki straddles the line between being a wiki about the TV show and being a version of Wikipedia within the Doctor Who universe. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's almost as I don't know if it's as bad as Wikipedia, because that is just
Wikipedia is
that's the Star Wars wiki.
I'm impressed by the scope of obscure Star Wars knowledge on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
It like outranks anything I've ever seen.
Well, and the fact that it's basically 2 wikis in one, because it's the old canon and the new canon.
Yeah.
Well, now it's 2 wikis in one. Back when it was just canon, and all the books, it was just one wiki. But then
Yeah.
Disney was like, it's all non-canon. Which, I mean, in a way, it never really was, like, full canon. It was all just like, if you want it to be canon, it can be canon. So... Anyway, the doctor's fixing the TARDIS.
Yeah, she's draining the pool and the sauna and something else.
The rainforest.
Too. The rainforest.
The rainforest. You think I'm making a joke, but I'm being serious here.
No, you
actually.
are. You are. I remember that line now. Yes.
I'm kind of wondering where she's draining it to. That's a lot of water. She's just kind of like, I don't know where it's going. But hey.
Maybe that's what the season finale will pick up this little plot thread and run
Yeah, I
with.
can't wait to see the TARDIS pool room like we did in the Tom Baker years, and it's just like the pool house down the street from the BBC.
But drained.
It doesn't look like the rest of the TARDIS at all. They're just like, well, the corridors don't all have to look the same.
No, they're going to get saved by a giant freak wave that's just going to wash away all the Cybermen. And she's like, oh, that's where it went to.
Tsunami from deep within the TARDIS.
Honestly, if that happened, I'd be like, Chibnall, you're the greatest writer on Doctor Who in history. This is brilliant.
You mean you didn't-
Sowing these seeds 10 episodes before they happen.
You mean you didn't say that when the doctor showed up and was like, I reprogrammed the statue 75 years ago?
Yeah, actually, it was a little weird that the resolution to this story happened off screen in the past. But we'll get there. I have things
there,
to
yeah.
say about that.
So Ryan, Yaz, and Graham get brought to the doctor by MI6 or whatever.
Yeah. This is where we have flashback number 1 because they're riding in the car and we have Killer Satnav straight from the Sontaran two-parter from Series 4.
Sontaran Stratagem. Yeah, as usual, I've noticed that Chibnall seems to only be referencing things from the Russell T era. So,
No, I think we have a Moffat reference in here in my notes. We'll get to later.
yeah, we may have one, which may be, I'm pretty sure, the first time at least I've noticed a Moffat reference in the Chibnall era.
Yeah, early on in Series 11 or Series 12. I keep forgetting which series we're on now. You're going to notice that Chibnall is playing Moffat and RTD's greatest hits, at least throughout the first half of the season.
Nice.
Huh, paying homage maybe to how they played their own greatest hits on repeat.
Can't wait for the Chris Chibnall greatest hits, which is just the Silurian two-parter over and over and over, and 42. We did kind of get a 42-esque episode last season, so...
Yeah. Well, and just the general like pacifism vibe throughout all of this is kind of
Right up until the Doctor just uses casual racism against the Master, which is also a little weird and also something I want to talk about.
Yeah, we'll get there. But she makes a point of calling herself a pacifist early on in the story.
right, and she upholds that later on when they meet Nora Nayat Khan. So they're in the car.
The Satnav starts blasting laser beams at him.
Yeah, and like they go really fast, and everyone else is screaming. And we cut to Ryan, and he's just like, and he loves it. He's just like, all right.
Well, I just loved... Now, I thought this was a clumsy mistake on Chibnall's part.
Okay.
But they show a shot of the car reversing towards like a drop, doing a nice show not tell right here. But then they immediately cut to the interior and Graham goes, I don't want to worry you, but we're reversing towards a drop. And I'm like, wow, no shit, Graham. Thanks for stating the obvious.
Yeah, he seriously needs to have a script editor.
Yeah, that's one of those lines that could just literally be cut with absolutely nothing lost and only gains.
Yeah, well, maybe he wasn't sure that it was going to get covered by the filming because he wrote that, but then I kind of blame the editor because the editor could have just cropped that shot completely.
Yeah, I was gonna say I get how he would write it into the script, not knowing if they were gonna actually be able to film. that or show it on screen, but then, yeah, like when the editor sees it, presumably the editor would go, one, that's a pretty clunky line delivered pretty clunkily by, what's his name?
I would have to assume that the editing department is manned by like interns, unpaid interns at the BBC.
Well, it's also like this thing of, when you write a script for movies or TV, you're not just writing the dialogue, you're writing a story, the full story with, details of shots that you want to have done. So presumably that would be in there, like they reverse towards a drop, and then Graham says, "Oh no, we're reversing towards a drop," type thing. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's just my speculation.
It's like you're not writing for Big Finish here.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he's writing it for all the blind people at home who enjoy Doctor Who.
Okay, well that's good then. I mean, yeah, he's doing a nice service there for them.
Yeah.
But for everyone else, it's just we're kind of like, okay, we get it, Chibnall.
They do eventually make it to MI6, and guess who's the head of MI6 but Stephen Fry? Turns out his whole entertainer persona has been a cover. He's been in deep cover for dozens of years.
Doctor Who now even further blending the lines between reality and fiction. Weirdly enough, I actually just randomly, coincidentally watched a video that had Stephen Fry in it, like before watching this. Yeah. Then he showed up here.
Yeah, wasn't he supposed to be one of the writers for Series 5?
I think so. I think he did write a script for it, and then like Moffat was like, it's too similar to something we've already got, or maybe it was he didn't turn it in on time, one of the two.
I think we got Curse of the Black Spot instead.
Oh yes, that extremely memorable story. That one that was also weirdly like a prequel sequel to a classic show episode from 1,000,000 years ago. So the Doctor name drops some things that would have been way cooler to see than MI6, like Unit and Torchwood.
Yeah.
Well, this is also just a reminder for us that Unit has been suspended.
Defunded, yes.
She also mentions the greatest organization, the GCHQ. Now, JB, you won't have heard this, but on our resolution episode, I bemoaned the GCHQ for being so bluntly and straightforwardly named, and then Keon was like, it's a real thing, and I'm like, great, that makes it worse.
I wasn't making it up.
That was like in the episode of In the Forest of the Night where they had like Cobra, and I thought, really, they're gonna go like use an obscure G.I. Joe reference, and then some Brit on Twitter yelled at me because like, no, that's a real thing.
Even worse.
I mean, G.I. Joe is like a real part of the U.S. military, right? No, I'm kidding. It's like the superpowers part of the U.S. military.
That actually would have improved that episode, I think, if Cobra showed up.
It's just like how I think every Doctor Who episode would be improved if the Terminator just showed up. Dun 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 dun.
Really, you think Edge of Destruction would be improved?
Yes. Actually, it would. Actually, unironically, it would be because they'd be trapped in the TARDIS with the Terminator instead of being trapped in the TARDIS with each other. You actually chose the one episode that might actually be improved if the Terminator showed up.
I was going to say this, but I actually said that on purpose to make that joke. At perhaps what you might consider my own expense.
You know, someone's just going to take those two and mash them up together and put it on YouTube now.
Well, I'm really glad that our fans love our weird mashups so much that someone went and actually made Agatha Christie for us.
Yeah, thanks, Very Pete Lambert.
Yeah, thank you, Very Pete. If you haven't seen that tweet, I think it's still pinned.
Yeah, it's pinned
on the Trust Your Doctor account.
At TYD Podcast on Twitter. Check that out.
Oh, jeez. Can't wait for Edge of Termination.
Anyway, C explains what's going on. This is actually really funny. He says something along the lines of like, we don't know who they are, what they did, or how they did it. All we know is that it was bad, and they're targeting spies.
Yeah, the one thing that this episode never really explained, at least to me, was like, why are they targeting spies specifically? Because in episode 2, the Doctor makes it out like they were they assigned an alien to every famous person ever involved in the development of computers, but I don't think like Ada Lovelace like definitely wasn't a spy.
Yeah, I was sort of wondering that too the second time around, and I think, they basically the aliens were spies themselves, so it might have been some competition thing. I don't know, or maybe the spies sort of somehow got wind of the aliens, and so it's just really kind of. I think it's just sort of a flimsy thing to hang something on so that we can have spy music in the car chase at the end of part 1.
Let me hit you with the cop-out answer. The master was just telling them to kill the spies so the doctor would get involved. Here's your cop-out answer.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
My sort of theory was that like almost all technology, not almost all, but like a significant amount of technology was developed in conjunction with like military stuff. So maybe keeping tabs on spies and like world affairs would also clue them into like computers and stuff. I don't know.
Actually, I take all that back. I just realized that there's this one, it's almost a throwaway line, but it's when he gives them their tools and he's like, all of these spies were involved in investigating Daniel Barton. And that's probably actually the explanation as to why they're all being taken out, because they're probably protecting Daniel Barton, the what are they? The Kasavan.
Well, here's something. Here's a sort of truth bomb. As a writer, any type of writer, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever, people aren't going to remember what you say unless you say it like at least 3 or 4 times. And they didn't say this at least 3 or 4 times. They said it once in a
because
random
C
throwaway
immediately
line.
gets like assassinated 3 seconds later.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he actually reveals who shot him after he shot him because he goes, "Oh."
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get that. Yeah, that's definitely a nice little thing for, I guess also people who pay way more attention than me, which is most people, but also for the second watch type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the doctor wants to meet with this guy, and C's like, I fired him. And she's like, well, why'd you do that? And he's like, he was pretty suspicious, and also I didn't trust him, and just he was lame, and I fired him.
He wasn't cool enough to...
He wasn't cool enough to be in MI6, yo. Maybe he went to go join those unit fools.
Yeah, because apparently the doctor has met O before, and I'm trying to think, when was that? Was it when she was John Pertwee back in the 70s or 80s, depending on the unit dating controversy?
Well, I really like the implication in this episode that when the John Sim Master was Prime Minister, there were 2 masters running around on Earth just messing stuff up. Maybe possibly even 3, depending like how long ago O embedded himself in MI6.
Right.
That's true. It's kind of like how when Capaldi's doctor was a teacher at Cambridge for 50 years.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, all these other incarnations of the doctor are running around saving the universe, and he's like teaching class, and he's like, I don't have to save anything because all the other guys will sort it out.
Well, I mean, it's just funny to think about these things because, like, yeah, when the doctor's like teaching it at the university for 50 years, there were like 2 versions of the master in existence then too, because there's the one in his basement, and then there's and then like,
well, and Delgado, I mean, it's 50 years, so Delgado falls into that.
That's
too.
true, Delgado.
Yeah.
Also, while Missy's hanging out in the basement. And then like, if you consider like a lot of the expanded universe stuff canon, like in November 23rd, 22nd, 1963, there were like 5 versions of the Doctor in London separately having adventures, not running into each other somehow.
It's a big town. It's a big city.
It is a big city, but I don't know how many time travelers can you fit into a city before you become incredulous that they won't meet.
Yeah. And still he cannot steer that TARDIS in 1930s New York.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So at this point, I do want to point out the scene, the bit where the doctor is talking to O on the phone, and she says, "Crisis, big crisis, serious crisis, big serious crisis." And I saw this clip before watching the episode, and I was really cynically thinking that this was Doctor Who's attempt to ride on the coattails of the CWDC Crisis on Infinite Earths miniseries that was also airing around this time.
Yes, I got all the information from that from my friend who actually watches those shows, and not me.
Yeah,
who
I watch
doesn't.
those too.
Oh, nice. I just knew Brandon Routh's Superman was in it, and I was like, it's probably pretty cool. I also heard that Lucifer showed up, which is good.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I've not watched Lucifer. We've got that in our Netflix queue, but you've yet to pull the
Lucifer is
trigger on that.
hilarious. Love Lucifer. I need to catch up on it, actually. Watch the first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So they get a picture from O, and they talk about this stenography, which is something I've actually done before. Fun fact. So I was like, hey, cool. So stenography is basically you can hide other data inside an image, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about this before on Doctor Who in Face the Raven, I think.
Yeah, I don't think they name dropped it though.
That was what it
I
was.
blocked that out completely.
Right?
From
Of
that
like hiding
episode.
details and maps.
Yeah, but stenography is like specifically computer images because you can like hide it in the metadata, and you can also embed an entire another image into an image. And there are multiple techniques to do this, and a lot of it is like manipulating the hex code. But like to just a regular person, it just appears as an image. You have to know to look for the information in the image.
Well, it's kind of like tracking pixels in a way. Sort of the same idea of different use.
So I learned about this when I in high school participated in it wasn't like a hackathon, but kind of like a hackathon. But there was a whole bunch of code breaking challenges. You had 48 hours and you had to complete as many of these as possible, and one of them was this stenography challenge. You got to work in a team though, so there were 3 of us, and I remember solving about 50% of the team's puzzles, maybe a little less.
What?
There was one person who didn't do anything, so I'm pretty sure it was like 50-50 me and the other guy. Throwback. Anyway, there's some nostalgia there. But anyway, so the Doctor decodes the message and finds out that O is in Australia, and then they land in Australia, and there's like 2 guards with O, and I'm like, damn, those guys got there like way before the Doctor. I feel like they could have easily found out where O was by just like tracking those bad boys.
Well, the thing is here they have 2 sort of objectives. One is to go investigate O, and the other is to go investigate or convene with O, and one is to go investigate. Was it Barton? Was his name?
Daniel Barton, yes.
Yeah.
Played by Lenny Henry, who back in the mid-1980s used to have his own comedy variety show, apparently. And he did a sketch. He did a Doctor Who sketch where he played the first Black Doctor.
I've seen this sketch, and it's actually pretty funny. I remember seeing the sketch like right when we started Trust Your Doctor. But I didn't make the connection that was the same guy.
Yeah, that's him.
That's kind of a twist, actually. Just lends credit to the fact that Britain has like 5 actors that they just rotate through. But yeah, like Keon mentioned, which we didn't mention, they split up, and Yaz and Ryan go to investigate Barton and the
San
Doctor
Francisco.
They're under
San
deep
Fran.
cover.
I wonder if Grace is around. What if she got her job back at the hospital?
I mean, given Doctor Who's propensity to unkill people who are killed, wouldn't be surprised.
I'd like to think that this new and improved era of Doctor Who actually follows through with consequences, but maybe not, Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, given the fact that they did the usual, we don't know how the Master survived, but he's back thing, and they probably will again.
Yeah, we're not even sure which incarnation this is, whether this is the latest model or whether this is an earlier incarnation. And, I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I know a lot of the fans were really bent out of shape over the fact that this might have been the next model, because all that character development with Missy just got thrown out the window because he's stark raving mad again.
Oh, I absolutely think he's post-Missy, and I'll explain why later on, and I think it actually ties into that character development. I think it's actually brilliant if he's post-Missy. I was going to say, I do think there's a lot of fans who think the Master's coming back at the end of the season because there's an actor in Ascension of the Cybermen named Barack Stemis, which is an anagram of Master is back.
Oh, you not The Rock? The Rock's not going to be appearing on this?
Not yet. Just wait. Just wait for when we take over.
Just wait for the 14th Doctor, who
will be Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He's going to be the largest Doctor by mass. with the biggest muscles, he will solve all problems with doors by punching them instead of using the sonic on them.
Solve all problems with villains by punching them.
We really got to
the
get
next Doctor just like punches villains in the face.
Well, anyway, back to the actual story at hand.
Ryan is freaking out over having to play this role.
Yeah, so Yaz kind of plays it off as him being really excited to meet Barton, and Barton's like, yeah, I have that effect on people.
Well, Barton, we find out, is sort of this no-nonsense guy, because as soon as they sit down to do this interview, he's like, I'm just Googling you guys just to make sure that voring you guys. Because we actually didn't explain who he is. He's sort of...
he's basically Mark Zuckerberg, or Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg, yeah.
Yeah.
But perhaps a little less sinister. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I feel like Mark Zuckerberg's not really sinister.
No,
he's just a kid who lucked into this fortune who still hasn't really figured out what he's going to do with it.
Yeah, I feel like he's just very apologetic in the public eye. Like, when the spotlight's on him, he just apologizes profusely until it goes off of him for a while.
He might still be a lizard person, though.
He always looks like a deer in headlights whenever you see him.
Well,
like,
that's just his robotic servos malfunctioning.
Maybe he really is 93% human.
No, Barton is more the supervillain, like Jeff. What's his name? Jeff Bezos. Yeah, who like actually looks like a supervillain. I don't know if you guys have seen a picture of him, but yeah.
And he's also been recently pouring money into his own personal like space company. So Space Race 2.0, are we there? Are we here now? Possibly. Virgin Galactic is trending upwards too. Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, whatever Jeff's corporation is named.
Yeah,
Race.
Why is it the big people in like business, tech, like government and military, basically the people who run the world, like can't think of anything new? They just have to revive the stupid old US versus USSR space race. Like, come on. Think of some other way to make our lives worse.
Yeah. Well, it's all going to be obsolete when they finally invent TMAT.
Yes, TMAT. Yeah. I was going to say, but the space race made our life better. Computers exist because of the space race. Well, the computers in the form we know them basically exist because of the space race, because they had to program those bad boys.
Well, the computers as we know it, exist because of the aliens in this episode, because they are, once again, we have aliens influencing the human race for their own means.
It's true. Well, once again, we also have the master teaming up with a random alien species for his own gain, and we all know how that, how well that goes for him. Every time that happens, they inevitably betray him, or he betrays them, and then they try to kill him and slash her. So, the people at the house get attacked by the Kasavan, and O kind of repels them because he's got this laser shield that apparently the Doctor just doesn't think is suspicious like at all. That he's got this like force field shield, which is well beyond the capabilities of the human race at this time.
Well, I mean, he knows he's being, sought after, hunted by these beings. This is actually
he's playing it off as being very paranoid, and that's why he has all these monitors around his cottage. And I do like we do get a lot of nice suspense during the sequence when they're out at night and they're being stalked by the light creatures.
Yeah, but only because O set up his security system in the dumbest way possible, where if you trigger the motion detector, then only the light for that motion detector comes on, and only as long as the motion detector is triggered. So they just kind of move, and then they stand still, and the light goes off, and then they move, and it turns back on. It's like, why wouldn't it just stay on until you turned it off manually? Yaz and Ryan get cut off because Barton's got to go do something. And then Yaz gets captured by a Kasavan and gets taken to the Kasavan dimension.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. We have production design that's straight from early Tom Baker era.
Creature from the pit.
Yeah. I was actually thinking like Planet of Evil. They just have like these plastic PVC pipes hanging from the ceiling, and we'll just sort of put Vaseline on over the lens. And
they spent all the money on the location filming.
Well, we don't really.
God damn it.
We don't exactly know what this place is yet. We just know that it's sort of this creepy, I don't know, plane. Yaz is like, yo, where am I?
Yeah. Before she gets taken, she's kind of getting all the information from Barton's computer by sticking this device on the screen, and of course that's how all these gadgets work. You just stick it on the computer screen, and it's going to suck all the
NFC, baby. What? Yeah, go
I was going to say, have you seen those people who like do extreme body mods and are getting NFC chips implanted under their skin like voluntarily?
Dear.
I saw someone who made like who took the chip from their credit card and put it into a sonic screwdriver so that they could pay for stuff with a sonic screwdriver.
Dear God.
Yeah.
I have a wallet that's TARDIS themed, and even I wouldn't do that because I only pull my wallet out once to pay. Whereas the sonic screwdriver, like that's really conspicuous.
Yeah, I feel like
depending on where this person tries to use it, I mean, he might get his ass shot because he's like, oh my God, he's got a gun, shoot him.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Like, if you wrong place, wrong time, you were like dead for doing that.
America.
Anyway, this worked about as well as it did for them here as it did in Kerblam. They tried to do the exact same thing. Because Barton walks in the room and he's like, I know you're here.
Yeah, but then the alien
he's
comes
out to the Kasavan.
The Kasavan's like, we must accelerate our plans. I don't know if you noticed this, but I don't know why these are the details that I'm focusing in on. Graham being left-handed and freaking Barton's scarf. But if you look at it,
looked kind of TARDIS-like, yes.
Yeah, it was TARDIS-like, and it had little like Starfleet Delta symbols all over it. So
oh dear.
I was like, interesting.
Maybe a throwback to how he played the Doctor at one point, and maybe will be incorporated into the season finale. I don't know. I'm really pinning my hopes on this season finale that I know nothing about.
But you should also like make a concerted effort to not spoil for yourself.
Just as a little aside here, I like Barton's tactic because, as a kid, I, played a lot of hide and seek or whatever. And this was my tactic. I would just walk into a room and be like, I know you're here. Just come out. I no use me looking for you. I know you're here. And half the time it would work. Half the time they would come out.
That's when you play sardine. That's when you start playing sardines instead.
What is that?
It's like reverse hide and go seek. So one person hides and everybody else is looking. And once you find the person, you join them in their hiding space. And you keep going until one person hasn't found you, and then they're the loser. The last person to find the gang of hiding people is the loser.
It's like Bizarro hide and seek.
It's called sardines because, like, if you hide in a closet and you play with like 20 people, and you're all just shoved into this tiny closet. Good times. Anyway, Yaz gets taken away to the astral plane. Ryan's like, oh shoot. But then some weird stuff goes on with like light and we see the kind of Kasavans approaching Yaz and they have a Kasavan captured in O's house.
Yeah, this is where we have the second flashback, and this is actually a flashback to the Moffat era. Because the alien says, we take this form to mock you. Which is a lot like that throwaway line that the monks had in that god-awful Series 9 3-parter.
Hey, the only bad episode in that was Lie of the Land. Even that wasn't that bad. Maybe again, this is just a trust your doctorism. But, we were talking about this before the show, As usual, the most recent season of Doctor Who is the worst thing ever put to film. But not for us, somehow. For us, somehow, the most recent season is always the best. Except for series 5, 6.
And 7.
Man, you really did not like Matt Smith.
I think people give Matt Smith too much leeway. I think people are like, he's just crazy and zany and he's great. But actually, I still think Matt Smith is the darkest of all the Doctors. The most psychotic, maybe sociopathic even.
I feel like I'm just kind of...
There's a hint of it there. They could have played with it a lot more, I think.
I don't even think it's a hint. I think he's just like outright I think he just covers it up with all his zaniness, but I think it's always there, basically omnipresent.
You think he's darker than Sylvester McCoy?
Absolutely. We talked about this like on the show, but he does a lot of stuff that I think people just kind of ignore, like especially in Good Man Goes to War, where he basically like, yeah, I'm actually just kind of like the worst person in the universe. And everyone's like, Doctor, you old jokester. But like, go back and watch like The God Complex or something like that, and just.
Oh yeah, that's probably one of my favorite Matt Smith episodes. I still cry at the end of that when he's telling Amy to like, I'm a bad person. You should just let me go.
Well, he's right. I'm going to go back and write a 3,000-word dissertation on this. 3,000 words is actually really short.
Yeah, it's not that much. It's really not that much. So I really like how this scene is done. Ryan runs out of the building and he's seeing it's sort of dark, and but the Kasavan are obviously just sort of their own little lamps, I guess, because they're lighting up all the sort of windows. They're appearing, and Ryan just goes like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, that was really creepy. That was actually really effective.
I think this scene is part of why part 2 falls flat for me. I don't know what I was expecting, but I thought it would be something more interesting than like world domination.
Yeah. Well, half the time I was trying to like squint and figure out, okay, are these guys of Cybermen, or are they the Vord from back in season 1?
Yeah, the name Vor was such a red herring, honestly. Maybe not intentionally, but to me, I was like, whoa. And then the fact that they look like the Cybermen, and the idea that perhaps the Vord and the Cybermen
are the Cybermen,
related.
yeah, because that was done in like a Sixth Doctor comic strip.
Yeah, where Jamie sacrifices himself, spoiler, and dies.
Yes.
But no, it's the Kasavan.
I still think it's a Cyberman.
Yeah, I mean, unless they come sucker punch us with the fact that this maybe
because we kind of get like, I mean, it kind of reminds you of like the Army of Ghosts, because they're like shimmering and everything, and they kind of walk the same too. So I guess you can kind of count that as a flashback.
It's the Pete's World Cybermen.
God.
No, it's this world's Cybermen. Remember, we're in a different universe. The Doctor's been in a different. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I noted that she did another one of these. Our universe, I mean my universe, corrected herself. I think it was in end of part 1 or beginning of part 2. And it was beginning of part 2.
Yeah, and have you heard the theory that the Doctor has been in another universe ever since she fell to Earth?
I did hear you speculate on that, yeah.
Oh, gotcha, yeah. Yeah, that's a very interesting theory to me. If it's not obvious, because I keep bringing it up, but
it's not going to be that. The interesting theories
not,
are never the right ones. Throw back to when you thought Clara was going backwards in time. So the Doctor goes to... Well, so Yaz then appears in the cage where the Kasavan was, and then Ryan calls her and is like, I lost Yaz! And the Doctor's like, I've got Yaz right here. And I thought at first that the Kasavan had disguised themselves as Yaz, and we're going to be like double agent now. I get it, because... But then no, that's actually not
right.
what happened.
The Kasavan themselves are like gateways to other dimensions.
Yeah.
I thought all people who were just spirited away or abducted by aliens just reappeared in the outback, but I guess not. No, I'm just kidding.
The Doctor picks up Ryan, and I would like to shout out here to Doctor Who, to Chibnall actually, for retroactively, by the reveal later on that the house is the Master's TARDIS, retroactively referencing the greatest scene of classic Who, where the Doctor materialized his TARDIS inside the Master's TARDIS. And she does it again right here, because she materializes the TARDIS inside the house. And I haven't seen anybody mention this, that this is like the third time that the Doctor's materialized her TARDIS inside the Master's TARDIS. This seems to happen multiple times.
Yeah, and nothing happened. No, there was no...
Yeah.
Nothing blew up.
Because when that happened in the classic show, the Doctor's like, this is a major problem. This shouldn't ever be allowed. We have major issues. And like the Doctor in this episode just like casually lands in the Master's TARDIS, doesn't notice anything, out of the blue when she checks the console. She doesn't like experience any time turbulence. It's just a regular old landing. Would have been a nice like kind of clue if she's like, kind of hard to land inside the house for some reason. I'm going to land outside the house.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been a cool, nice little clue, but no, we didn't get that.
Maybe this was just a subtle hint towards the idea that the house isn't actually the TARDIS somehow.
But it is.
It's like explicitly stated it is.
The vortex.
But I don't know how that would obviously work, but perhaps everything we saw was a lie.
The Doctor literally explicitly says it's the TARDIS in episode 2, so...
Doesn't mean we have to believe her.
Yeah, maybe this is a complex illusion and the Master isn't actually the Master, it's the Celestial Toy Maker!
Maybe, we don't know.
Throw back to that theory I had Series 8 where Missy was the Celestial Toy Maker and it was going to be revealed at the end of the season that, like the whole parallel universe theory, that the entire season took place in the Celestial Toy Box.
Look, I mean, you can always put the pieces together. They don't tell us everything, so, we got to do our own legwork here. And if that means that the house isn't the TARDIS, then so be it. I'm okay with that. If that means everything we know is a lie like the Master said, then so be it.
You know what would be great? Is if just at the end of the season what the Master meant is that like we just cut to Gallifrey, to the kid Doctor who we saw in Listen, and he just wakes up and he's like, wow, that was weird. and that's what the Master meant. Is the Master was just trying to get the Doctor to wake up. And then we see like another kid shaking the Doctor kid, and that's the Master. And it's just, he was like, you needed to wake up and you were like stuck in a coma for a year. And that's just, and then Doctor Who just ends.
Well, what if your dream about Matt Smith revealing that the Doctor isn't actually the Doctor turns out to be right? And it's actually the whole like gist behind this season was that Jodie Whittaker is the Master and Sacha Dhawan is the Doctor.
Weird. Yeah, I guess for people who didn't see my tweet 2 days ago, I had this really bizarre dream where like this series 12 finale was going to bring back Matt Smith playing the Doctor, and he was going to reveal that Jodie Whittaker wasn't playing the Doctor, and he was going to be like, I can sense other incarnations of myself, and she's not it.
And the Rock is no.
And that was like the extent of the dream. It was weird. This episode also does the thing that like it just ignores the fact that like in the classic show the Doctor was like, I can typically sense other Time Lords, and like specifically the Master in this episode. She only does it in the second episode when she knows who the Master is, but like leading up to it, she has no idea.
Yeah, we actually talked about this last time with the Doctor not recognizing the Missy as the Master.
Mm-hmm.
And he always claimed that, I'll know him by sight, but that, I guess, again, that turned out to be a lie.
He did it with the John Sim Master too. In the reboot, he literally has not recognized a single incarnation of the Master on sight, except when they knew who it was.
Just goes to show you can't always believe what the characters say.
Well, maybe this is a long-term hit and run because now it's like potentially more canon that the Doctor doesn't recognize the Master than they do.
Exactly. Anyway, at this point in the episode, they have to go figure out what Barton is actually really up to because they know he's in league with the Kassavan. They know that he's 93% human, I think, at this point. Mm-hmm. So they go infiltrate his party because he actually invited Yaz and Ryan to his birthday party.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where the incidental music kicks into high gear because what's his name? I got his name.
Segun Akinola.
Yeah, Segun Akinola. He goes way overboard with all the spy music, just like he did last week with the action car chasing music in Resolution. But
somehow in the scene right after, it's sort of a stereotypically done like casino gambling scene. It's larger than life. They're playing cards. They're shooting craps or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But the music dulls this scene down to such a large extent. So it makes it like How is this done? How is this possible? How is this scene boring? How? The cinematography, like the acting, it's all there, and then the music just like, just I don't know, it just dulls it down.
Well, I mean, we try following that bombast when they're first coming in, and then we drop back to his usual level of subtlety.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's what it is it's perhaps the music in this scene should have continued what the previous scene was doing.
I mean, I actually like how the music is not drawing attention to itself. I mean, Murray Gold, later on into the Moffat era, it's just drowned out everything. And it was actually manipulating you into feeling things. Because they couldn't do it with the script. They couldn't write their way into your hearts and minds. So we have to let the music be the shorthand. And I like how it's the music is, for the most part, kind of stays out of the way, and it helps set the mood. But and it does sort of give sort of an eerie feeling to a lot of the episodes. But yeah, I just got so tired of all the Murray Gold bombast.
That's fair, I guess. Yeah. I didn't though.
I miss the bombast.
Yeah, I still miss Murray Gold.
A whole season later.
There is, when the Master reveals himself, though, since we're on the topic, I think Akinola redeems himself.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, they infiltrate the party. They're having a fun time. They're having a good time. I really like the moment when the Doctor is wearing like a spy version of her outfit, and they call attention to the shants that she's wearing. But it's like a spy version, It's like
It basically is it's all black version of her regular costume with a bow tie. I still think that, I mean, how she looks, Jodie Whittaker's Doctor looks like she's a 7-year-old girl playing dress up.
She's young at heart and old at soul.
Old, like biologically ancient.
Yeah.
Got that sense of childlike wonder that Pete Davison encapsulated with the celery on his lapel.
I think I've said this before, and if not, I'll say it here. If I have, I'll say it again here. I don't really pay too much attention to the Doctor's outfit. I only really notice it when it's like explicitly in your face, like the question mark vest and stuff like that.
Oh God,
or the celery. When it's just like a semi-normal looking, outfit, I don't really pay too much attention.
So you went for the question mark vest and the celery on the lapel, and not the rainbow vomit that the 6th Doctor wore. That was fine to you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so the fam confronts Barton, and he's like, well, he'll never stop me, and he leaves, and they chase him on the motorbikes. They eventually make it to his airplane, and they're running to get onto the airplane.
I like how he's shooting at him. He keeps hitting all the headlights on the motorcycles.
Yeah.
Those are big ass headlights for them. Make easy targets.
Yeah, so Dylan looks like he's contemplating whether he wants to say something or not.
No.
No. Well, so they get on the
eyes
plane.
are in pain.
Your eyes and not your
My neck is also in pain. Everything is in pain. Pain.
God. Turn his volume down quick.
Oh, God.
Just turn my mic off.
Yeah. So they get on the plane.
Yeah, as O is running to the plane, he's like, I was never a good sprinter. And the Doctor's like, what? And I was like, yeah, what do you always came last. And the Doctor's like, I read your file. You were a world-class champion sprinter. And he's like, you got me.
She just drops like, what about all those times we ran through the fields of Gallifrey? No.
And he's just like, what? She's like, I've known all along.
You thought I wasn't on to you?
But yeah, he's like, oop, you got me. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, come on, you can figure it out. Look out the window. Look out the window. You look out the window and the house is just flying. She's like, what? 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 She does the David Tennant thing.
And he goes, so this was a cool little subtle hint that they dropped earlier. He goes, it's like I said before, if you want to figure out who's in charge of the Kasavan, you got to look for the spy master.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hey, it's the Terminator again.
See, now if they were on this plane with the Terminator...
and then they wouldn't have won in the end.
Yeah, exactly. The Master should just team up with the Terminator.
It's that simple, Master. It's literally that simple.
But yeah, the Doctor goes, oh. And
that's why I picked my name.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh. And then I'm like, oh. And I'm like, ah.
And
yeah, this also lent to the theory that this might be an earlier incarnation, like he could have been Master version 0.0 or something like that.
Right, earlier than Delgado.
That'd be pretty whack, actually. That'd be really whack.
Well, I really like how it's done here as well, because Dewan's acting is a complete 180 from who he was as O.
Yeah, he is the most unhinged version of the Master I've ever seen. He's just, he's very gleeful. He's very childlike. He is actually the youngest person to portray the Master. But he's jumping around, and then like when he's upset, he like hits his head on the console, and he's a mad bugger, that one.
And he yells at people.
Yeah, he's like the Kylo Ren to perhaps all the other Masters, maybe except Sims.
He's the Kylo Ren
Vader.
to Jodie Whittaker's Rey, as I'm going to mention in the second
Oh.
episode of the weird Lost
Yeah.
Jedi-esque scene.
Oh, okay. So I guess Roger Delgado would be like the Count Dooku
Yes.
of Sith Lords.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and Peter Pratt as the Darth Maul shows up once and then just immediately dies.
Well, he actually doesn't die. He comes back.
Yeah, but there's a big fat question. There's a bigger question mark in the middle there than between all the other like incarnations.
Oh, I was talking about Darth Maul.
Oh,
He comes back.
oh, I mean,
He's not
yes.
dead.
So does the Master. I mean,
Yes, he does.
throw back to that time the Master was, destroyed in Castrovalva, or that time he caught on fire in Planet of Fire, or that time that he got stuck, wherever the time flight took place.
The
Literally
Serafest, yes.
Every season 8 episode where he just dies at the end of the episode and then
And then
isn't
just
dead
comes
at
back.
the end of the beginning of the next one.
Or that time Missy looked like she got disintegrated by a Cyberman and then was just back again 2 seasons later.
The following episode, because that was end of series 8, and then she came back to start of series 9.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're like, how did you survive? And she's like,
Yeah. Wouldn't you like to know?
yeah.
No, they had that flashback where in black and white where it's like, oh, learn this trick from the Doctor. I don't know which incarnation it was. And
That's true. There was that one time they tried to explain how the Master survived, but then Moffat learned and stopped trying after that.
He decided to stand on the shoulders of giants for once and just not have it be in the story.
Yeah, when John Sim just showed up and it was like, how are you still alive? He's like, well, don't know. I don't even know. I mean, this Master could even like totally be between Sim and Missy. Like, we never actually see Sim regenerate into Missy. We just know that Missy is post Sim at some point.
He could be anywhere.
yes,
He could
yes.
he could just be another random renegade Time Lord who's just pretending to be the Master.
It's the monk.
Wouldn't that be a twist?
God.
It's the monk.
What if? Oh man! What if in? My hypothetical finale is getting better by the second. What if? What if in the finale the real Master shows up and he's like, "You thought you could impersonate me, monk?" Combine this with the fact that Jodie Whittaker is actually the Master and that Sacha Dhawan is actually the Doctor.
But then
And
the
they're all
Ronnie
just
shows up.
pretending to be each other.
But then the Ronnie shows up, and then the doctor, who's actually the master, is actually revealed to also be the Rani. And the Rani's like, I don't know how this is going.
Oh man, what if Yaz is the Ronnie? Like, what if that's the whole thing?
And then
with
it's just
her
revealed
teaming
that
up with-
Graham is the doctor, and C had it right in this episode at first. And Graham's like, yep, spoilers, it was me all along.
But then who's Jodie Whittaker?
The Rani, portraying the master, portraying the doctor.
They're all just the Ronnie at different points.
They're all just Rassilon. They're all just Rassilon.
Each one mind wiped into thinking there's someone else.
Everything we know is a lie.
But Chibnall really digs deep into master lore here because he brings back the tissue compression eliminator. Because he reveals that the real O, he shrunk him on his first day of work and took his place and just embedded himself in MI6 for like 3 years or 5 years waiting for the doctor. And then he's like, see you later, doctor. Finally gotcha.
Because it turns out he's planted a bomb in the cockpit.
It's his whole like gotcha thing, like I thought was really interesting because it reminded me heavily of Zygon Inversion when the doctor's talking with Bonnie, and he keeps trying to convince her not to do it, and eventually there's a moment of silence and he just goes, gotcha. And she's like, what? And he's like, you changed your mind. I can tell. And like I got very 12th Doctor vibes in this when Whittaker, the 13th Doctor, figures out who he is, and the master just goes, gotcha.
Even more proof that he's the doctor and she's the master. No.
I don't know if there's anything deeper to that. I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, he ditches with the Kassavan. And the doctor's like, well, now what? Did the Kassavan take the doctor away? Now Ryan and Yaz are plummeting to their death. And like, now what? And the doctor is in the Kassavan plane, and then smash cut to credits, episode 1.
What a season opener.
What an opener. It's all downhill from here.
Mostly, unfortunately. Not bad, just downhill. Just a slow downward slope.
Episode 2 begins with the doctor going, no, and some girl just being like, hey, come with me. And the doctor being like, I guess I don't have a better option, so all right. And
she takes her hand and they materialize somewhere.
Yeah, in some sort of like invention fair where someone, they're all showing off their
festival.
Showing off their inventions, and someone shows off the home grenade. A grenade to protect your home. I was like, okay, well, all right.
You have to fail 1,000-fold before you can succeed.
I like to think this guy was this is the kid who like woke up on the day of the science fair and was like, oh no, the home grenade. Just stuffed a bunch of black powder. He just put some trinkets on it. He's like, this is the home grenade. Well, how is it different from a regular grenade? It protects your home.
It does have sort of a junior high science fair feel to it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Ryan is lying on the floor and he just sees a plaque embedded in the plane telling him to look in the seat. And in the seat is a seat back, a safety card that's like how to land a plane without a cockpit. And I'm like, damn, those safety cards are really useful. Maybe I should actually read them now when I fly.
Titled Chris Chibnall does Russell T. and Stephen Moffat. Whatever you do,
Bill
don't
and
blink.
Ted, as we find out at the end.
Oh, I haven't watched Bill and Ted.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
You've not seen the first Bill and Ted?
Nope.
We'll watch it for Triple Play when the third one comes out this year.
Yeah, apparently Keanu Reeves and what's her name who plays Trinity were spotted together
filming Matrix
filming the
4.
next Bill and Ted. No.
No, filming the next Matrix, equally as strange.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you invest 6 figures in a bunch of movies that end up failing commercially.
So,
as the Wachowskis did.
The doctor
figures out where she is.
Turns out
it's like
the master can track her. is where I was going with this, because we see the master talking with, now I'm totally blanking on the villain's name.
I think
Barton.
Yeah.
Barton.
Barton, yes.
Talking with Barton, he's like, somehow the Doctor has survived. And that was a reference to Rise of Skywalker. And he's like, I can handle it. So he goes back in time, and he just shows up at this invention fair. He's like yelling about his incredible shrinking device, and he starts shrinking people. And he makes the Doctor kneel at his feet.
Yeah, this was a really uncomfortable thing to watch. My girlfriend was sitting with me the first time around, and she's like, yeah, I'm really kind of skeeved out over that. And I know that it was probably really intentional.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, that was intentional. But it's okay, because girl power saves the day in this episode, so they get him back in the end.
Yeah. I do have to kind of point out, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how Jodie Whittaker is playing the Doctor, because I think this two-parter, I think she's doing a really good job. She's got a lot of time to breathe, and it helps that she's away from her three companions, which I think for the most part they're kind of dead weight, honestly. And she's basically trying to be all inclusive and, come here, children, let's gather around and I'll tell you all about, what's happening here. But I think a lot of the episodes, I think she's playing the Doctor and not being the Doctor. She's using her arms and her hands too much, and she's just kind of like a psychotic children's presenter. But I think she does well in this story. But sometimes I have to wonder if she's playing the Doctor as a man trapped in a woman's body, because she's not used to being female, because she's, she calls herself the apparating man. Oh, sorry, lady, I'm still not used to that.
I think so. I mean, there's evidence to support that.
Yeah. I can see that. Definitely. She does it a lot in Series 11, actually, where she's like, not used to that. Also in Witchfinder, where she's like, it would be great if I was a man right now, because it'd be a lot easier, because everyone would just listen to me.
Yeah.
It's an interesting take. Unique take, certainly.
Yeah, because considering what she does at the end of this episode makes me really wonder, and I'll get to that when we get there.
Yeah.
You would think, maybe, this is just me kind of rambling, but you'd think Time Lords as a species that,
are a bit fluid on the whole gender thing.
Yeah, exactly. Wouldn't have this sort of mentality, but maybe, I don't know, since the Doctor has been, male for
literally 2,000 years.
Yeah, plus.
Maybe she's still figuring it out.
But there are also, obviously you can't really equate here, both because it's fiction versus real life, and because it's Time Lords versus like real actual species on Earth. But there are obviously, real species, animals and such that, flip between male, female. So you got to wonder in their psyches, is it something weird or is it not?
Well, in real life, most people, flip genders because they felt like they're, they were the other gender all along. It's just, right. I'm just changing myself to be the person that I know that I am.
We'll have to see. I don't know if they touch on this in anything that's aired so far, or if they will in the, 2 episodes that are left to air. I think the second to last one's airing now. As we record this.
Yeah, as we speak, the first of the 2-part finale for Series 12 is airing.
Time to stay off Twitter for 2-3
weeks. Yeah, how is it like? Now, are both of you watching these episodes together? Well, I guess separately, but together now, or have you watched ahead, Dylan?
No, I haven't watched ahead.
Okay, so this is the first time. So this is the first time that both of you are on the same boat. How does that feel?
Since Survival.
Okay.
For me, it feels
how does that feel? How do you feel going into that?
For me, it feels absolutely no different, of course, because it's just all new to me.
For me, it's exciting because I get to make wild speculation now. Especially once we get to Series 13, I'm going to get to make lots of wild speculation without knowing what's going to happen. I like being able to do that again.
Yeah, and then naturally you'll be able to do it instantaneous by then, because you won't have
Indeed.
to be playing catch up. That's going
People
to
will
be.
finally hear Trust Your Doctor's wild opinions live.
We can be part of the spoiler crowd online.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, Dylan's usually a lot better about not spoiling stuff or saying stuff, because when we watched Blake 7 for Zenith, the Blake 7 podcast, check that out. I had watched ahead and I kind of spoiled some stuff. And then when we watched both Star Cops and Children of the Stones for Inevitable Classic Sci-Fi podcast, check that out. I spoiled a lot of that as well. Especially with hinting like that it was a time loop in Children of the Stones far before that was made apparent.
Yeah, in like episode 1.
Anyway, the Doctor, I forget.
Well, Ada shoots the Master in the arm, and he seems to be totally fine for the rest of the episode. So I guess he heals quickly.
Well, he plays out the rest of this episode in real time for him. Like he waits hundreds of years.
Well, not until he.
Not until he gets
Nazi
stranded.
era.
Yeah, he gets stranded in Nazi Germany. Yeah,
because he does take his TARDIS to jump from the 19th to the 20th century.
So I guess he had time to heal.
Yeah, I guess. But the Doctor finds out that this is Ada Lovelace, but not Ada Lovelace yet because she hasn't met Mr. Lovelace. So, and then Charles Babbage. So, the father and mother of the modern computer.
Yeah. Also, this entire group has sort of this weird connection to the Villa Diodati, the people who wrote Frankenstein, Byron, Mary Shelley, etc.
Mary Shelley's in this season.
Yeah, a later episode is about
as
that
is
group.
Lord Byron.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
So this is sort of just all tying into that, I guess. Perhaps.
Chibnall had it planned all from the beginning. We all wrote him off in Series 11 as having no plan, but turns out he was the biggest planner of them all.
Well, if we're trying to investigate who has, had the greatest overarching vision or plan for Doctor Who, it just based on what's apparent, it would seem that Chibnall is perhaps like the biggest planner in the history of Doctor Who.
Yeah, or at least he's the most focused.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because Moffat just would come up with interesting ideas and then completely lose interest and just go off on, literally the big finish. He just wants to have the big O at the end of it. Cyberbrig and all that, Missy's reveal and
yeah, it does. I mean, if we're trying to sort of analyze Stephen Moffat as a writer, try and get into his mind, it really does really feel like he just gets bored so easily.
Yeah, because he burned through all of his ideas in the first 3 years of his
He burned through
tenure.
all of his ideas in Blink.
Really thought you were going to say, what was that, a comedy special? Curse of the Fatal Death.
And we kind of have a callback to that because when the Master spends after he gets captured in Nazi Germany, he's waited like 70 something years and he finally makes his appearance. It's like I've returned. I had to go through all this. I had to slog through all these years. So that is kind of a callback to Curse of Fatal Death.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah.
Most of episode 2 follows the Doctor because Yaz and the gang just get, Barton's like, I can track you wherever you go. So they throw the phones away and then they end up in a construction site. And that's all that they do for the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, this is the third major flashback because the Doctor's companions are now Britain's most wanted and are on the run, just like in, was it The Sound of Drums? Or yeah, it was The Sound of Drums.
Dun 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 dun. Wait, hang on.
But I love the scene where they're discussing everything at the construction site because they kind of have this moment where they go like, wait a minute, we don't know anything about the Doctor.
Yeah.
But then Graham says, but I'm still on her side. Like, aren't you guys? And they're like, yeah.
But they're also talking about, well, who's this Master? And it's just, it's like Jack and Martha asking the Doctor who the Master is.
Yep.
Yeah, because she clearly recognized the Master, and they're like, this is pretty weird that she recognized this guy, when he said his name. And they're like, yeah, that is pretty weird, actually, considering we, literally never encountered a recurring villain last season until the Daleks. So, the companions have had, no experience with the Doctor, just being like, oh, yeah,
I have all these adversaries. Who
Yeah,
want
I
me
have a
dead.
whole rogues gallery, so to speak, and they keep chasing me through time. And I didn't mention this when you started traveling with me, but yeah, I'm literally wanted by like 10 different alien species.
Yeah, Yaz just got her fingers crossed behind her back, like, yeah, I still trust the doctor. Like,
I mean, I think there is an element of that because when the master leaves, he specifically says like, "Stick with me, Yaz, because I never go wrong." And then he leaves. Like that was in the big end of episode 1, and that line stuck out to me because it's like, why would he specifically single out Yaz in that instance?
Unless he's really the doctor.
Yeah, exactly. Or unless he's got something going with Yaz, or like she talked with him and was like, I don't trust
play
the
with the
doctor.
flirtation, in part 1.
yeah, there's definitely an element to it of that. We'll have to see where Yaz goes. Maybe
she just fades into obscurity.
Well, maybe it'll be like the Ghost Monument where, they hint at something that doesn't really even matter until like over a year later.
So the doctor comes up with this plan to get back to her own time by calling in the Kasavan because she sees the sculpture, which apparently is like linked to the Kasavan somehow. And she calls in the Kasavan and they boot her out, not in the 21st century where she wanted to be, but in the 20th century in Nazi-occupied Paris.
Perfect.
This was my plan all along.
Well, that was because Ada grabbed her hand at the last minute and threw her off.
Yeah. Threw her off out of the time stream. And they meet this lady, and they don't know who she is yet, except that she's going to hide them in her floorboards so that when the Nazis come, they don't get shot up. And
but they shoot at the floorboards and they still don't get hit.
Yeah, because I think there was kind of an implication that they were hiding in the floorboards literally right under
Nor.
Right under their
under
feet.
Nor.
And
And they didn't shoot Nor.
It was a bulletproof carpet. I'm just kidding.
Kevlar carpet.
I think we have the title to our podcast episode now.
The master's like, I gotta get one of those for my TARDIS.
No, that was the carpet. That was the tapestry that he had sewn in Castrovalva.
Oh, yes. Throwback. Thanks, Adric.
Meanwhile, in the present day, Barton is terrorizing and killing his mother.
Who seems wholly unimpressed and like not even scared at all. She just was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, she actually, I mean, if you read this as like she knows she's going to die and she just wants to like stick it to her jackass son one last time, then she does a great job.
Mm-hmm.
Have to wonder where he got it from, though, and it's looking pretty obvious who he got it from in this scene.
Yeah, maybe if Barton's childhood was implied to have been better than it was implied to be.
And his mother only loved him.
He wouldn't have turned into the guy he is.
Yeah, so he calls on the Kasavan and they kill her. He's like, you're the first. And he goes to this tech conference. And this scene happens a little later, but since we're here, I'm just going to explain the start of it. But he's talking and there's like lights on him. And I thought for sure that they filmed the scene. It was just what's his name who plays Barton just in a black room with lights on him with like with no actual audience. They were just filming him in a room. Like highly thought that was the case, and it in fact might still be the case because I'm not entirely convinced that we ever see a shot of the audience and Barton in the same frame.
Yeah.
No, I mean how it's all done is like this. This isn't necessarily just like a random mini stage at the BBC, but probably is type thing. So the Doctor gets in touch with the Master by using the Time Lord double heart.
Well, first,
thing.
yeah. She pumps out the drum beats. That were in the Master's head. Don't forget about that hit and run that Russell T introduced.
Revealing that the Doctor Who theme is actually...
Yeah. And then after they establish contact via the telegraph. They actually establish contact telepathically, all the 3 doctors and the 5 doctors.
Yeah, I know this was a 3-5 doctors thing, but all I could think of when this happened was Lost Jedi. Just gonna be honest.
Yep.
All I could think of was Lost Jedi.
And Rise of Skywalker. They do
Rise
it
of
there, too.
Skywalker.
Yeah.
They even kind of film it the same way, shot, reverse shot.
Yeah, well, thank God he kept his shirt on.
Hey, some people want to see that. The master's
I didn't.
chest. Some people want to see the doctor's chest. Equal opportunity here.
We
Equal
did get to see
opportunity.
John Sims' chest, though.
It's true. We also
got
got to see John
resurrected.
Pertwee's
John
chest.
Pertwee.
Oh, that's right.
And Matt Smith's.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's it.
But not Peter Capaldi's.
and Eccleston's, too.
When was that? I don't.
Dalek.
Oh, yeah. You're right. You are actually right.
They decide to meet up on the top of the Eiffel Tower.
Which was also 100% just a set.
Yeah, her second, actually her first visit to the Eiffel. Well, no, her second, but chronologically the first time the Doctor has been on the Eiffel Tower.
Weird facts in Doctor Who history.
We also get a Sly Logopoulos reference here.
Yeah, I think they mentioned the radio that the master threw the Doctor off of. Except not literally.
Well, he was responsible.
But it's okay because the moment had been prepared for.
It's true. I'm still upset that they didn't include a moment has been prepared for a joke in Day of the Doctor. Still upset.
Oh, yes. That line was right there.
Yeah, it was right there,
right for
and
the
Moffat
picking.
didn't take it. He didn't take it.
Moffat doesn't go for the low-hanging fruit, you see.
That is a lie. That is the most
he
false
climbs
thing
higher.
that's been said on Trust Your
He
Doctor.
climbs higher. And as a result, his era of the show is better.
Well, he climbs higher, then he falls out of the tree and bangs all the low-hanging fruit on the way down.
Yeah.
So the Doctor's talking with the Master, and she says this kind of... This is the first line that indicated that something kind of weird was going to happen, because she's like, you're not exactly the Aryan ideal right now. And he's like, perception filter. And she's like, And then Noor sends a message to the British basically saying like, the
Master's
Master's
here.
been a great help. He's been a great help just giving us information. And, this works, and you have to wonder why they didn't do this more often for like all the officers that they just hated.
I like how it mirrored, though, what Ryan and Graham and Yaz do, which is that Yaz, calls her sister as sort of a ruse or to draw in Barton's guys, and they steal the car.
Right.
So kind of, they're in parallel. They're not even in the same time periods, yet the Doctor and her companions are sort of, in sync.
Yeah. But then we get the nice comedy moment with Graham in his laser shoes.
Yeah.
Pew pew.
Yeah, that was kind of groan-inducing.
I mean, it was fine when he was shooting the Kasawan, because he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm just tapping my feet to shoot it. But then when they like use it to
Overtake the troops.
Yeah,
Attempt to kill, the Barton's men.
it's true.
Well, this is something that, this is something, though, that, like, Doctor Who honestly feels now that it's gone more back to its roots, perhaps. It's more for kids, or they're trying to aim at least portions of the show more at kids. But this is something that, like, adults think that kids really want to see, right? Like wacky laser shoes, right? And I think most of the time Doctor Who does a good job in not underestimating, the intelligence of kids.
Yeah,
but this is one.
I think that when they try to be inclusive to like all ages, that's when you get these radical shifts of tone. And it's like they can't decide whether or not it wants to be a serious adult sci-fi drama or a kids show, and it really loses its way when it does that.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think perhaps when it's not as aimed as, I mean, I'm no researcher, or marketer, demographics person at all, but I think perhaps when it's not explicitly, when things aren't explicitly being done for maybe the younger viewers. That's perhaps when younger viewers can actually enjoy it more. Because I just think so many shows for kids are like dumbed down, but like kids aren't dumb. Like so I think a kid could watch Spyfall and really like it. It's
right.
So whatever. There's my 2 cents. This is where we get the sort of interesting, weird, perhaps, like race Nazi Germany stuff, where the doctor removes the perception filter, and the troops that the master was commanding realize that he's not white.
Yeah, I saw it described as the doctor weaponizing the master's race against him.
Yeah, that was very cold.
Yeah, it's. One, yeah, it's very cold, but two, it's like weird and like kind of out of character for the doctor to just like. The doctor's like never really ever
it
mentioned
feels really
anyone's
personal,
race
though.
at all.
It feels really personal. Like she's really sticking it to him.
Yeah, I think it also feels weird because there's like no real reason for it, right? The troops are coming to take the master away anyway because they think he's a spy. She doesn't have to remove the perception filter.
Yeah, it's just that extra bit of FU.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of to touch back and maybe relate this in a way that it perhaps shouldn't be related to the scene where the doctor, the master makes the doctor kneel. That, and on some level, like, makes sense to me because, like, within the logic of the story, like, he's the bad guy. What he's doing, this thing that he's doing is a bad thing. So if you want to read that in terms of gender, which you pretty much can't, it's pretty much impossible not to do. This is a bad thing in terms of the logic of the story. But this one is like, all right, what is this? What's this doing in here? And even like you mentioned, in terms of the actual plot, like why is it, what's going through the doctor's head?
Yeah.
It feels especially weird because it almost seems to be saying like the doctor or the master can't ever be non-white because that like discludes them from being involved in a lot of history. It's like a weird opposite universe version of if I was a man, everyone would listen to me in the Witchfinders, where she's basically like, well, you're not white, so the Nazis are going to take you away now, which like obviously you don't want to be teamed. You don't want to be teamed with the Nazis, but like
she even says to him, like at the beginning, like this is low even for you.
Just weird, man. It's just weird.
A lot of political and racial politics in my Doctor Who.
It's just weird seeing the Doctor using someone's race as like a weapon against them because it is kind of race, like it is racism basically. Like she is playing into this racist ideology.
Yeah, she's not explicitly doing it herself, but she's kind of leveraging the fact that like this regime is not entirely, but largely based around like let's wipe out every race or every person. Really, it extends to more than just race, but every person who we deem not worthy or whatever. And she's like actually leveraging that.
Yeah, it just seems really spiteful of her to do, and I just have really never seen the Doctor, done that to the Master, anything out of spite before.
Yeah, he always tries to save the Master.
Exactly. So this is, thinking about it now, yeah, this is really out of character.
I mean, like I feel like if it was just left at the coming for him because they think he's a spy, there would basically be no problems with that because like she's not putting him in a position where he's necessarily going to be killed because he could easily talk. He might still be, but like he can way easily talk his way out of that one.
Yep.
Well, she literally saw him being burnt in an oven, in Planet of Fire, and he got out of that. So
yeah. But like this is like by leveraging his race, she has to know that if they don't kill him outright immediately, they're sending him to a concentration camp, right?
Yeah.
Like because he's not white, basically. And it's weird, man. But then she steals the Master's TARDIS and uses it to get back to the 21st century. But not before the Master shows up at the place where his mom is dead, where Graham, Yaz, and Ryan have also showed up and are starting to get taken over, basically. And the Master shows up and he's like, do you know how much it sucks to live through 70 years of Earth's history? It sucks.
Yeah, he says, like, do you know how... He specifically mentions the 20th century and how it sucks to, like, live in the 20th century.
He could have gone and played practical jokes on the 12th Doctor at Cambridge or whatever.
Yeah, after surviving his, like, Nazi torture that they definitely put him through.
Yeah, he had to go through years of therapy after that. And he probably killed
Timeless
his therapist
therapy.
at the end.
We forgot to mention that on top of the Eiffel Tower, the Master tells the Doctor that Gallifrey is destroyed.
Right.
And the Doctor doesn't believe him.
And I thought... I guess I just misinterpreted what was happening here, because I thought in this scene he was like, yeah, I did it.
No, it's not until after she visits Gallifrey and then the automatic message from him starts to play in the TARDIS.
Right. Yeah, that's when that happened, I was like, oh, I guess he didn't say he did it before.
No, he said that somebody did it,
No.
and it was destroyed when he arrived. Just lying to the Doctor to get her to go there so that he can stick the knife in one more time and be like, ha, it was actually me.
Yeah. Me as in him, not me as in a shielder.
Hey,
Wouldn't that be a
maybe. Hey.
So,
There's your twist for the end of series 12.
it was a shielder and Clara.
And Clara.
Bravo, Chibnall, bravo.
Did I ever tell you my Bill theory?
No.
My Bill theory is that Bill is the granddaughter of Clara and Danny.
Whoa.
Does Clara travel back in time to get space pregnant?
Well, she can't be pregnant because she's frozen in that moment of time because she doesn't have a heartbeat and she doesn't have to breathe. So apparently, I guess her reproductive organs don't work. I'm guessing that at some point, Danny Pink had frozen his sperm, and so she's traveling around with a shielder. And then at one point, she's like, "You know what? I want to have a kid." So they go back and they get Danny's sperm, and they I guess they get an egg out of Clara, and then shielder is like she carries the baby to term, and it's Bill's mom. Because when we saw Bill's mom, we saw the flashbacks to Bill's mom. I kind of thought to myself, if you would take Jenna Coleman and like put dark makeup on and an afro wig, she kind of looks like Bill's mom.
This theory gets increasingly more complex and it's weird the more you explain it.
So Clara and the Shielder will burst in the middle of the cyber ascension, and then Bill and Heather will drop in, and it's like, hey, yeah, you're my granddaughter, because they were hinting about Bill being someone's granddaughter, with all the takes to Susan.
Mm-hmm.
It can still happen.
Maybe that's why Chibnall has been basically ignoring the Moffat era just to save it all for this big reveal.
I think there's a
Everything in the
reference
Moffat era.
to Bill, like later in the season. The Doctor mentions that she doesn't want to lose another person to the Cybermen. And Jodie Whittaker came out and basically straight up said, yeah, that's a reference to Bill.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't a reference to Danny Pink.
Could have been a reference to Adric. The BBC...
Don't want to lose another good man like Adric.
I mean, speaking of like the BBC just weirdly spoiling things, they did post a picture that like it was four panels. They're horizontal in length, but vertical in arrangement. And the first panel is the Doctor going, I won't lose another person to them. And then the next panel is a picture of Bill. There's a picture of Danny. And there's a picture of Adric. So
Adric, to talk about this in like a serious light for a second, Adric is such a weird figure in Doctor Who because like he just never goes away. Like he's like this weird apparition. Yeah, exactly. And I heard, I don't know too much about it, but in the re-release of what was it called? The one where he dies.
Earthshock.
Earthshock, yeah.
Because it's going to shock the Earth.
Yeah.
JNT.
Well, there's some re-release of that or something that sort of made people reinterpret his death or reconsider the circumstances surrounding his death. I don't know too much about it. I don't want to know.
You know, this hypothetical finale for this season is getting even better in my head because now the Doctor materializes the TARDIS and saves it. Or no, actually even better. The final scene of this season is the Doctor's just like, she sees a shadowy figure in a doorway and she's walking up and she's like, is that? And he turns around and it's Matthew Waterhouse, it's Adric. And then the season just ends on that big reveal and you're like, whoa. Chibnall, you genius.
Matthew Waterhouse has aged surprisingly well. He could still play Adric and not be too much older than the Adric we knew and loved. There's actually a behind the scenes. There's so much about Adric and it's so weird. There's a behind the scenes picture released recently that had Matthew Waterhouse wearing a canine sweater. Had like a canine like patch on the front.
Weird.
Yeah. Anyway, the Master's plans have been foiled because at this point Barton has revealed that humanity is over and that he's, going to leverage the fact that basically everyone on Earth is giving up their privacy to Vor for world domination.
This is the Matrix timeline. He's turning them into storage devices, literally. But then in the most underwhelming, plan foiling of the past season, the Doctor shows up and is just like, well, I actually built a safeguard into that, a failsafe into that statue. I went back in time to, when Barton wasn't in his room in 2019, built the safeguard, and now I'm just going to boot you all back to your universe.
Yeah. It was such a specific thing, too. It was like, if the statue ever detects a very high amount of Kasavan energy, it just shuts off and never turns on again.
And then Graham and them are like, how'd you save us from the plane? And she's like, oh, hang on. And then her and the other gang leave, and we get like last season, the first story has a montage of the Doctor building something, and she sticks it in the plane.
But this time it's an elaborate set and prop to save her companions' lives.
And then she returns. She returns Ada and Nor to their own times and erases their minds, bringing back that.
Yeah, that's something I want to bring up here because that's very troubling because this again may play into some inherent sexism that this Doctor who used to be a man for most of his life is now a woman. Without spoiling anything, okay, she basically, she erases the minds of these two women without their consent. The second one explicitly without her consent. But later on in the season, we're going to meet two historical figures who are male who have an adventure with the Doctor, and they do not get their minds erased.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but the naive cop-out answer is that the Doctor needed to preserve the development of computers, because she explicitly says when she accidentally says the word computer to Ada, she's like, you need to forget that because I might have just changed the entire history of the development of computers, which is like vital to the human race. I mean, it's a cop-out, and I don't know the context or who she meets later in the season and how that fits into that, but...
Well, again, I kind of want to just propose this. I think kind of like the kneeling scene earlier on, within like the logic of the story, how it's played out on screen, this is like a bad thing that the Doctor is doing.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll play into what we see later on.
13th Doctor's got a dark side.
Well, I mean, she's done that with she did that with Donna. She tried to do that with Clara and Bill.
Yeah, it seems to me, going back to the conversation where you were like, I don't know how Jodie Whittaker's playing the Doctor. I'm starting to realize that she might be playing it as not necessarily a man trapped in a woman's body, but maybe as a character who is, as a doctor who is maybe not necessarily actually naive, but certainly acts naive. Like, you could, I think, make an argument that she maybe doesn't know or consider the repercussions of what she does to the Master, and when she erases Ada and Nora's mind, she's again maybe just being very naive about the whole thing. And
she's definitely someone who wants to forget the past. That's very clear to me, and that might be part of it too.
Yeah, maybe she's someone who wants to act very naive and recapture that sense of wonder that she had when
she was Hartnell.
When she was Hartnell. I mean, you joke, but that's what I was going to say, when she was in her first incarnation, where it was very easy to go out and not have to make all these big decisions or consider the repercussions of her actions, because she was just a guy with a box, and maybe she's trying to recapture that now. The 12th Doctor explicitly had this come to Jesus moment where he's like, I'm just a madman with a box, and I'm doing right across the universe. And maybe the 13th Doctor is taking that a step further, where she's like, I'm just a mad woman with a box, and I don't even necessarily need to consider whether I'm doing right or wrong. I mean, I do in the end, because that's my moral compass, but I'm just doing whatever, trying to be naive about the whole thing. Like, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. But you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, Doctor.
It's true. It's true. You can't put the beans back in the can. Well, maybe you could.
It's a little easier.
If they're dry, then you could.
Yeah. So yeah, then the Doctor goes to Gallifrey, and it looks just as bombed out as it always has.
Yeah, just good old Gallifrey. The Master was kidding after all.
If the Master hadn't told us that the Gallifrey was burned, I'd just be like, wow, Gallifrey's looking good these days.
Yeah. They do kind of, it's the only real way they telegraph it is that the snow globe cities that they have on Gallifrey are now broken snow globes.
Yeah.
Other than that, it looks exactly the same.
Yeah, but there are no Dalek flying saucers scattered about.
It's true.
And then Leela shows up? No.
Chibnall, you genius. Romana, K9, because remember, he left a version of K9 with Leela.
Yeah.
They're just K9s scattered across the universe.
Wait, Romana stayed on...
No, but
I
maybe
guess there's some in the
Big Finish audio, she makes her way back to Gallifrey after leaving E-Space again.
Yeah, becomes the president.
And then regenerates into Joanna Lumley.
No. That was the Curse of Fatal Dance. She actually regenerates into Juliet Landau.
Yeah.
In Big Finish.
You're right. No, you're right. They have the same initials. Hence why I got them confused. But you're right. No, you're right. It's Juliet Landau. But then there's a holographic message from the Master who clearly pre-recorded this in anticipation that the Doctor was going to find this in the state, and he was like, I actually burned Gallifrey. Ha! And he's like, I know all this information you don't. Ha ha! And I'm not going to make it easy for you. Bye! And she's like, no!
He does tell her that everything they were told about the Timeless Child was a lie.
Yeah, we get the nice, helpful flashback to the Ghost Monument.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to throw this out there, but I heard a very interesting theory. I read a very interesting theory on Reddit that basically was saying that in the final episode of this season was going to be revealed that the Timeless Children of the Doctor and the Master, and that they were Ux from the Battle of Ransker Av Kolos, and they created Gallifreyan society and the concept of regeneration, and then had their minds wiped and became the Doctor and the Master as members of Time Lord Society.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. There's no way that could ever play out as true.
We may be sitting here 8 weeks from now, being like, well, egg on our face, well. I think it more likely for Chris Chibnall to pull a Ryan Johnson and subvert expectations and just have this Timeless Children be something completely underwhelming. Just it's just literally Leela or something, and they're just I'm actually just someone who got lost in time. I fell through the time vortex, and literally nothing happened about it. It's just that's all that happened.
Maybe the Timeless Child is a gas mask kid.
Are you my mummy?
It's Susan. It's going to be Susan.
That would be mind-blowing.
Well, I remember when this came out, there was sort of a meme, I guess. It was very short-lived that the Timeless Child was what's her face from now I'm blanking on the episode name. Fear Her.
Oh God, oh my God.
Yeah.
She just drew everything into existence. Yeah, I would be pissed off too if I found that out.
I wouldn't. I'd be like, bravo, Chibnall. It's going to be the solid track to watch. Solid track's coming back.
The Bating is the Timeless Child.
It's the ambassadors of death. It's the Merca. Merca's the Timeless Child.
What if the Timeless Child is like a code name or keyword for like a coalition of every Doctor Who villain, no matter how minuscule?
So the Pandorica opens.
Yeah. But that wasn't everyone.
It's
just
little
most
Billy a pond.
Anyway, so pretty much at the end of the episode now, one of my final notes for this episode is can't wait to never see how the Master gets out of this one.
Yeah, because he gets transported to the Kasavan universe.
And she's finally telling she's finally coming clean with the fam about who she is, where she comes from. She's giving her backstory, but as I saw in the Wikipedia entry for this episode, and I didn't really read this at the time watching it, but she's telling her backstory. The Doctor's not really sure that it's even like her real backstory anymore.
Yeah, I didn't get that when I was watching it. And I saw that on the wiki too when I was looking at it, so I know what you're talking about. But yeah, the way I read it was she was just talking, and then when Yaz asked to go home, she had a moment of like, well, we can't do that anymore because for the second time in the reboot era, the Gallifrey has been destroyed.
Yeah, playing the greatest hits.
Watch, just in the finale, it's going to be revealed that Gallifrey wasn't actually destroyed and the Master was just playing a cruel joke on the Doctor. And by cruel joke, I mean his master plan. Yeah, so there we go. We're into Series 12 now. Episode complete. Achievement earned.
This was the first, maybe this is something I should have mentioned earlier. This was actually the first Doctor Who episode I've ever watched. These two episodes, I guess, were the first I've ever watched in the same year that they aired in. Interestingly enough.
Truly a momentous occasion that we're not celebrating at all.
No.
I calculated yesterday that, like, sadly, because of these two-parters, the finale of the season will not be episode 300 of Trust Your Doctor, sadly.
Darn.
Oh.
But if it was just 10 individual episodes, episode 300 would have been the finale of the season.
Well, maybe they'll surprise us and come out with 2 specials or something.
They're doing one special, which I think will be episode 299.
Should be, yeah.
Yeah, which will be, I think, next New Year's. Or this coming New Year's.
So the premiere of Series 13 will be episode 300. Good to know.
There you go.
Momentous.
Yeah, and you'll be absolutely in sync by then.
That is a momentous occasion.
But you got to wait
7
a year
years.
or longer. I don't know how long this next gap's going to be.
Probably another 18 months.
Oh, God. Oh, well, I got plenty of stuff to watch in the meantime.
Right, like Torchwood.
Well, you guys can watch that. I already watched all that.
Anyway, so I'd like to touch a little bit on this Master being post-Missy, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that would actually be the smart thing to do because of the added character layer between the Doctor and the Master, where it's even more devastating for the Doctor knowing that the Master has completely reverted to his evil, maniacal ways. And that all the work that she did in her previous incarnation was undone by the regeneration. And I'm imagining this real knife twist scene where the Master confronts the Doctor and just goes, everything you tried to instill in me was a lie. And then doing something like, but you know what the worst thing is? At the end of my life, I was coming back for you, Doctor, and then I got killed. And she would just be like, oh, my heart.
Maybe the
my heart's...
Maybe the timeless child is just the idea that like goodness wins out over evil, and that idea is timeless, and everything about it was a lie.
Wow. But yeah, I think Sacha Dhawan plays a brilliant master. I was really captivated like every time he was on screen. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
what's he going to do next? What's going to happen? And I think he plays really well off of Whittaker's doctor, because they clearly have those intimate, character-driven scenes, like on top of the Eiffel Tower or in the plane when she's figuring out who he is, where he plays very well off of her.
Yeah, and she plays well off of him. It's a two-way streak, yeah.
The Masters in the new series have been more consistently good and well acted than the Doctors, I think.
That's fair. I think they've also been consistently well cast against the Doctor that they're playing against.
Yeah.
John Sim, I think, was cast very well against David Tennant, and Michelle Gomez against Peter Capaldi.
Yeah.
And here with Sacha Dhawan against Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm actually hoping that Sacha Dhawan returns, because I'm keen to see more of his master and more interplay with Whittaker as the Doctor. So I'm looking forward to that. And I just really enjoyed his interpretation of the character.
It was very entertaining. It was very fresh. It was very, you just didn't know how he was going to fly off the handle any second, especially in that scene in the science fair. It was,
And he's like, "Did you move?" And she's like, "No." And he's like, "Did you move?" And she's like, "No." And he's like, sorry, thought I was mistaken."
Yeah.
And he just zaps her.
I do like it.
Chilling.
I think it was in the hologram at the end, his wardrobe. You really don't get a good look at it, but I've seen some publicity shots of it, and it's very Jack Nicholson as the Joker in Batman.
Wow, the impression I got of it was Tom Baker season 18. And also the 11th Doctor in that Christmas episode where he had the purple coat with the green fringe. The snowman.
Yeah, but didn't he wear that like throughout the rest of his run, just without the hat?
He had a different purple coat. This one was longer, which is why I thought of that one when I saw the Master, because the Master's coat is knee
He even
length.
came in with a top
like
hat at the science fair.
So, I like how we're calling it science fair.
It was just sort of like an invention convention.
Basically, convention.
Maybe that should be the title.
Yeah, but in terms of pacing, I know we talked about it at the beginning, but I was a little let down by the pacing of the second episode, because it felt very. The second episode felt very rushed. Like Chibnall had these points that he wanted to hit. He had a ton of them, so he went boom, 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 point A to point B to point C. Like, the Doctor is in the Invention convention, and now it's Ada Lovelace, and now she's in World War II, and it's Nor, and now she's meeting with the Master, and now she's back in the future, and the Master's explaining his plan, and now we're doing this, and now we're doing that, and it's like, okay, whoa, buddy.
I do kind of agree with that. I did want to touch on like the historical figures that are baked into this episode. I think they're going to do stuff with that later on in the season that might be more interesting. But here, even though we have had the sort of return to historicals with the 13th Doctor, it feels so out of place in this story. I don't know if that's just me, but maybe if these were fictional.
Well, I think also we have two historical
history.
female characters, and I think this is part of the, for lack of a better term, the Chibnall agenda, where we introduce all these important but usually forgotten female characters. Well, not they're real, real life people here, but these historical females that you might not have learned about in school. I mean, we had of course Rosa Parks in the previous season, and I think it's some would say it's the feminist agenda. Which, I mean, they're just being butthurt about, it. But
yeah, But I was going to say, like, even still, like, yeah, there was Rosa Parks, but you know who else we met in that episode? Martin Luther King Jr. Like, every time we've met a female historical figure in the Chibnall era, we've also met a male one. Like, here we got Ada Lovelace, but who else is there? Charles Babbage. So,
well, not with the Noor Inayat Khan World War II time period.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think it's conscious on Chibnall's part to push back against the masculinization of history. Because I know we mentioned this briefly in Resolution, how when we tallied up like all the famous people that the Doctor had either met or mentioned in Series 11, it was like heavily tilted towards men, and that's because like history is typically very men oriented, and this might be a play against that, like saying that, well, history's male oriented because history's written by the victors. You know?
I kind of got the sense in last season that all the stuff about the Doctor mentioning all the famous people, like half of that was just bullshit, because she said something like in the Ghost Monument about when she gives Graham the pair of sunglasses, and she's like, yeah, these are either from Audrey Hepburn or from Pythagoras. And it's like, no, they're not. You got those at the thrift store at the last episode.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an element of that, definitely.
Yeah, but that's all thrown into question when she mentions the Agatha Christie one, which is one that we saw on screen and know actually happened exactly as she's saying it. Yeah. So when she mentions Agatha Christie and Kablam, and she's like, there was a wasp, and that's when I met Agatha Christie, and like if we hadn't seen that episode, you'd be like, BS, like a giant wasp, Agatha Christie. No, Crispy coming back. But then like we actually saw that one, so that like that leads me, I'm inclined to believe that all of her mentions are accurate.
Yeah, just goes to show you, just because you're a liar doesn't mean you're not also a truther.
Yeah. I don't think you can use the word truther now in today's political climate.
It's true.
Really?
It's taken on a meaning to imply that all news is fake and you seek out truth, and the anti-vaxxer movement uses the word truther a lot to describe themselves as well.
Wow, I didn't know about any of that.
Or the birther movement.
But I don't take it back.
The birther movement, about
I don't even know what that
Obama,
is.
like claiming Obama wasn't born in America. And they were like looking for the quote truth, unquote, about his.
Well, I didn't know any of that, but I don't take back what I said.
Fair. Admirable or foolish. The jury's out.
Yeah. One thing that I will say about episode 2 of this, though, just to kind of redirect the conversation, is that the more interesting bits were not the Barton Kasavin bits. They were like the Master and Doctor and what's happening on Gallifrey bits. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it kind of falls flat. Again, I don't know what I expected. I thought it would be something better than world domination. But it wasn't.
It was the Master.
It's going to be grandiose,
again, as I said,
it's going to be grandiose. It's going to be half baked, and he's not going to think it all the way through. And I mean, we have to pawn the companions off and have their own little side adventure that really, doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I honestly think that these three companions, why are they really traveling with the Doctor? What is, we really don't get into, later on in the season, we're going to try to get inside the minds of these people and their motivations, but they're just really kind of, it's sort of a throwback to classic Who companions where we just get a little bit of backstory, but then they're basically just, the Doctor's assistants. What is this, Doctor? What are you doing, Doctor? Here, let me help you do this, Doctor. And I guess we got so spoiled with Rose and Martha and Donna and Amy and Clara and with all the rich characterization. And they're just sort of ciphers at this point. And, for me, this season, season 12, it'd be interesting to hear what you guys think. But we have the big 2-part beginning of the season, and then then in the middle, we're going to have something major is going to happen in episode 5, and then we're going to have the 2-part finale here. And in between, we have all these little stories that really just don't matter. It's just no one really cares. You're sort of filling time until we get to the next major event. And Doctor Who was originally an anthology show, where we moved on from story to story to story, and there really wasn't much of an arc. But then when it came back, we have we have Bad Wolf, we have Harold Saxon, we have Torchwood, we have all these little things peppered here and there, and then we have the big bad season finale. But and I think series 11 for me was a refreshing change because there was no arc, there was no overarching story aside from Tim Shaw, and it was just nice to have these little stories that we can just sort of get invested in, and then okay, we'll move on to the next. But then everyone is so clamoring for what's going to be coming up. 3 episodes from now for you guys, and then what's going to be broadcast today and next week. And I mean, at least for the first half of the season, the next 2 stories are just throwaway. You can just completely forget about them.
Well, here's my response to that. Obviously, without having watched anything beyond this, is like I would kind of think that that's okay as long as they're somehow thematically related to things that are going on. Even if it's not like plot-wise, we don't learn anything, or if it's just another random story. Like as long as there's some little connection that you can kind of make in your head, then maybe there is more going on.
I guess maybe I can't, because I think there's so many like shows now that do it so much better than Doctor Who. And I think also the problem is that you only have 10 episodes and 50 minutes per episode. You don't have enough time to really tell effective stories. I mean, there's one story that's going to be happening later on in series 12 that they could have taken this and made it a 2-parter, and it would have been a much better episode. But you're constrained by the time limit, and you're constrained by the episode, by the number of episodes per season that you have. Where most TV shows in America, at least, you have 22, 23 episodes to tell a story, and I'm not convinced that Doctor Who was ever really effective at trying to be both an anthology show and one with a story arc per season.
Yeah, I mean, my response is that I don't actually think that every episode should be tied into the story arc, and I don't think it's a new thing that there are throwaway episodes. I mean, I'm just thinking back now, like series 10, was the whole like Missy Redeem arc, but does anybody ever talk about Smile or Thin Ice anymore? No, those are basically the throwaway episodes of those seasons, and I'm fine with that because those are good episodes. Think back like Fear Her. Fear Her was just mediocre. No one would talk about it ever again. The people only talk about it because it was bad. Yeah. It had no bearing on the overarching plot. It tied into absolutely nothing. I think maybe I'm just losing my patience with those episodes now. I mean, that's understandable.
Yeah, I think that's something that maybe Dylan and I will start feeling now Dylan again and me maybe for the first time that we've caught up. But I also think like, in terms of like, hey, just want to put on a random episode of Doctor Who, and you can for like most of them.
Yeah, that's the thing is that if every episode is tied into
it's going to be hard to plot, go back and just watch, pick up from this episode, and it's like, oh, I got to know what's going on here. Yeah, I get that. I just wish that they would. I just wish that they would. I wish they would. I honestly wish that every story was at least a 2-parter, because you just don't have enough time, because it all feels rushed. It all feels so it's just so too kinetic for me. It's just too fast paced, and it really affects how Jodie is playing the Doctor, because she has to be a hyperactive children's presenter every episode, because she's trying to get in all this. All the techno babble and everything, and she's waving her arms wildly, and it's because you only have so much time to fit all this shit in. And if you had room to breathe like you did with this episode, it's a much more effective performance. She has those moments. She has a lot of more quiet moments with the Doctor that we kind of get inside her head, and you lose that when you're trying to cram everything into 50 minutes. And trying to fit in all these disparate elements. The next episode is, that's going to be a lot of like Moffat and RTD's greatest hits there. And it was not a really good episode, but you'll find that out this week, I guess. Or maybe you'll think it's like the greatest thing since the Armageddon Factor. I don't know.
No, I don't want to speak for Dylan, but I think I was definitely feeling at least some of what you were saying last season with Series 11, where it's like, all right, a lot of these are really fast.
Yeah.
Hard to keep up with.
Yeah, I don't think I ever personally had that problem, actually. At least not in the Chibnall era until right now, until this episode. This part 2 is the first episode of the Chibnall era where I really felt like it was very frenetic and over the top and really fast paced, ironically enough.
Probably because of the multiple time periods.
Probably because of multiple time periods, but also because, again, I felt like Chibnall had a checklist that he wanted to hit, and he wanted to hit it in that's the thing, is that it feels like he wanted to hit it only in part 2. Like, part 1, he built up this very interesting spy thriller that reveals the master.
And then we do away with it in part 2.
And then part 2 is completely different.
They should have called
part
it something else instead of Spyfall Part 2. They should have called it, I don't know what they could have called it, but they could have,
Yeah, because, again, part 2 to me is the one that feels really frenetic, because it feels like the Doctor's got to hit everything and fix everything in 50 minutes. But the reason why I feel it's different is that when you have a one-part episode, you set up the problem and you solve the problem in 50 minutes. So there's a limit to how complex the problem can be. Generally speaking. But in this one, he spends 50 minutes setting up the problem and then has to solve it in 50 minutes. But he spent so much time setting up the problem that it became so incredibly complex to solve that the 50 minutes he had to solve it in was like, well, shoot, we're just going to speed through this bad boy.
Well, okay, here's the thing. This isn't necessarily the type of analysis that I typically like to engage in, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. The gist of the second episode was that it's like a big twist or a reveal that time travel and multiple time periods are involved. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why it falls flat or feels out of place, is that, like, in episode 1 there's not really a hint of that, just the multiple maps which turn out to be the multiple time periods, which again is only mentioned
but
once,
do we
briefly.
really needed to have the multiple time periods? I mean, I think the only reason why we have the multiple time periods is to introduce these two historical characters who are female. It's, again, we're going back to the feminist agenda that everyone keeps bitching about, and again I don't mind, but does it really serve the story? And I don't know that it does, especially since they got their freaking minds are wiped afterwards, because they don't learn anything.
Yeah, I actually liked that Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage showed up, and I liked because I liked Ada.
Oh, yeah. I like how they all come in and like Graham's like, "Are you replacing us?"
Yeah, it was just a little puppy, like.
Yeah, no, I was, like, when watching the episode, I was genuinely surprised that the Doctor and Ada didn't just immediately end up in the 21st century and then have to solve the problem there. I was, like, genuinely surprised they went to Nazi Germany, not Nazi France, sorry. And I don't know, I keep harping on about the pacing, but I think actually the reason why it feels rushed is because we don't, in my opinion, we don't see the resolution to the story. The Doctor just comes in and says, yeah, I went back in time and I built a failsafe into the statue, and so that's how you lost. Like, we don't, and that's, I think, why it feels rushed, because we see all the other stuff happening and then the end just appears.
Well, I just thought of this, but maybe that actually has to do with the fact that, like, women are a lot of times erased from history. Like, we don't actually see, like, maybe that's done formally here, right? Like, we don't actually see the Doctor solve this, just like we don't actually see, quote unquote, like, these women throughout history, like Ada Lovelace or in a Hitcon. So maybe that's done in, like, a formal way in this, of, like, she just did it off screen, off camera, off history, off recording. But it mattered.
Or they just didn't have the budget to do it. Or they just didn't have the time to do it. Like,
and they didn't have enough story to make this a 3-parter, so they have to compress everything into part 2.
Well, at that point, I'm maybe going to get a little nitpicky here, but if you're combining, like, analysis of, like, all right, what is this doing in the story versus, like, all right, behind the scenes stuff, then, like, that's all right. What is that called? I don't know what it's called.
I have absolutely no idea what point you were trying to make there.
is like perhaps you shouldn't combine those two things.
Perhaps not, but I think it's an interesting thought experiment and to do so anyway.
Sure, why not?
You can place your own stake in whether that analysis has any validity or not, but I think it's a good thought experiment to entail.
Yeah, I mean, just I'm obviously I'm saying this, so I'm partially on this side, but a lot of people would say it has absolutely no validity because you're combining.
I mean, that's a perfectly reasonable opinion to have.
Yeah, because you're moving from like literary analysis or like something filmic to something historical, I guess, and you're combining the two, which is interesting.
I mean, this story blows the lines between this story alone, like blows the lines between fiction and reality. So I think that in our analysis, potentially also blowing the lines between fiction and reality, maybe playing into what the story is doing itself.
Man, what it wants us to do. We're being controlled, man.
I mean, maybe because that ties back into the whole with editing the master out of the trailer so that nobody knew Sacha Dhawan was in this season. Like, that's kind of like almost the BBC going like, in this story, we blur the lines between fact and fiction, right. Well, and now we're going to do it in real life.
Well, they're revising history too. That scene had already been filmed, and they took him out. They just straight up took him out.
Yeah.
Almost kind of like, history is taken out. Perhaps people like Ada or Noor Inayat Khan. Maybe more so Noor Inayat Khan, because I had no idea who she was before I watched this.
Me too.
But I did know who Ada Lovelace was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what does that say about the episode,
Lots of questions, a lot of questions, very few answers. Just how I like it.
This might be one of the few times where there is some validity to considering, like, what's the BBC and Chibnall doing, because they are dragging the story into real life by editing the trailer.
Yeah.
And so they are blurring, like, the fictional world we're watching with the creation of said fictional world.
Yep.
Well, my mind's blown.
It's in some ways interesting that we didn't quite sync up with the show, because we were able to have this discussion because we weren't synced with the show, because it only came out like after the episode aired that the master was edited out of the shot. Like, I don't think I would have immediately picked up on that just watching the episode the first time if we were contemporaneous with the show.
Yeah, true. We would have been a week off. Even if we were watching them live, we would have been like a week off. There's no way we could have done it without drastically changing our schedule.
Because we actually like sit and watch these and think these out. We don't just like go record right after we watch it and just babble on for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, we take notes now.
I've always taken notes. Except for when I actually I actually brought back Who 37, my Doctor Who podcast. I did sort of a drunken record with two of my friends, Chris from Dirty Whoers and Sean from the TARDIS Tavern, both Doctor Who podcasts that are no longer with us. And we sort of have a drunken boys' night out where we discussed the first 5 episodes of Series 12, which is I think it's a fun little listen. And we're going to get back together after these last 2 episodes air, and we'll talk about the later half.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'll have to give that a listen. Once
you get past episode 5, give it a listen, because we give away, like, well, I think you already know the twist.
We already had it spoiled. Thanks, BBC.
Which we will not say here in case any of your listeners are actually like watching and listening with you.
Potentially.
We spoiled a lot of this.
We spoiled it in Resolution.
The episode that came out like an hour ago.
We spoiled it in Resolution because we were talking about how the overarching kind of themes of Series 11 played into all these disparate theories of what was going to happen in Series 12. So in order to do that, we had to spoil some things about Series 12. In hindsight, maybe we should have put a spoiler warning.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, I'm actually out of things to say about Spyfall now.
Yeah, I think we've been going. This is going to be the longest episode of Trust Your Doctor ever.
Not quite. Go back to that episode with RG that was a 3-hour recording that I had to pare down half an hour of stuff to get it to 2.5.
I imagine she's probably taken episode 5.
Nobody's taken episode 5. In fact, nobody has taken any episodes except for you. JB. So, yeah, maybe we should just turn Series 12 into how many guests can we get on Trust Your Doctor as well. Doctor Who's bringing back old favorites. Maybe Trust Your Doctor should as well. We'll call Nathan and Brendan in. We'll bring in the heavy hitters from Flight Through Entirety. We'll bring back Jim and Martin. Bring back RG. Hey, maybe we can finally get 42 to Doomsday on our podcast too. Been trying for 2 years to get them.
Or a mostly made up Who. They're not even functioning as a Doctor Who podcast anymore. But
I'm actually like kind of unironically on board with this idea. We can talk about it more off recording. Well, so I guess that brings us to the end. JB, if you would like to take a moment to shamelessly plug yourself, where can we find more content from your, where can we find more recordings of your dulcet tones?
Well, I already mentioned Who 37, which was my Doctor Who podcast, which was on hiatus, but I'm going to bring it back whenever I feel like it. So we might get a couple more episodes out of me this year. I do have a full-time podcast. I am the host of the Bat 77, the 70s Batman podcast, where I am currently reading and reviewing all the Batman and Detective comics that were published in the 1970s. I'm currently in August 1970, so I have a long way to go. But I sometimes have guests on for that. But basically, I read an issue, I do a synopsis of it, and I review it. And I also read the letter pages from back in the day and read about what everyone thought about when they read the comic books back in 1970. So you can find that it's Bat77 at Libsyn. No, it's bat77.libsyn.com, or you can just find me on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find all your favorite podcasts.
Very nice. Very nice. I have yet to subscribe to the Batman one, unfortunately, because I've been a little slow on keeping up with podcasts. I'm still stuck in August of 2019. So
I stopped listening to podcasts when I stopped commuting, because that's the only time I would listen to them. So that was like 6 months ago.
Yeah, I'm going to start listening while I commute now. So
I have an hour train ride, and then fortunately I'm able to wear headphones at work, so I get most of my podcasting listening in while I'm at work. I actually did a big catch up because I was recently in Hawaii, and like I actually listened to your It Takes You Away episode on the plane ride back.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Nice.
Cool.
It was.
Good episode. Lots of talking about the frog. Oh, boy. Well, thanks you for being on, JB.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for accommodating our shifting schedules and late email replies. It was good fun, and we hope to have you on again, hopefully.
We'll do next season.
Year. Next season, and our plans for the inter-season years, which we haven't quite nailed down yet, but maybe they involve you coming back.
I will stay tuned
on the show. So, on that note, we'll shamelessly plug ourselves. You can email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Series 12. Give us your preview. Give us your thoughts. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify, all at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Likes on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Likes on Facebook. Also likes on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be watching Orphan 55. But until then, the end.